morning and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. Today I'm going to make some dandelion salve, and I'm going to show you how I make it and actually how you can make salves of your own with dandelion or other herbs or essential oils depending upon what you want, and it's easy to do. The first thing I do is grate some beeswax. So I use a plain old cheese grater. I just use this grater for beeswax. I don't use it for anything else because it's a pain in the you-know-what to have to clean. And you have to put a little elbow power into it. If you don't have a grater, you could chop it up into tiny pieces with a knife, but this is a lot easier. And if you notice, this beeswax it's not white, it's kind of yellowish, and it has an interesting scent. It doesn't really, it's hard, I don't know how to explain what it smells like, but it has a little bit of a scent to it. But the reason it's kind of yellowish is because I get it from a local beekeeper, and it's got a small amount of honey left in it. It doesn't have all the honey processed out of it, which is actually good for your skin and a good thing to put in a salve that I make. So I just grate some up, and you get these little bitty then you kind of make a mess because it sticks. I put it in, I have an old cake pan that I use, or I don't know, some kind of baking pan that I use to grate it in, because if you just have it on a flat surface, all these little shreds go everywhere and it's a mess. But you grate it up. Put it in a bowl. I'm going to need, for this salve, I'm going to need about a cup. And that's probably about a cup there. A cup shredded, not packed in real tight. And that is the first ingredient that I need for the dandelion salve. And then I'll show you when I'm done grating, and when I'm sure I've got enough wax grated up, I'll show you how I make it. Alright, I am getting ready to make a dandelion salve. And yes, I'm wearing different clothes than I was earlier in this video. That's because I was going to make dandelion salve that day. Stuff came up, I didn't get around to it, so now it's a few days later, and today I'm actually going to do it. So let me show you my ingredients. Just a second, Isaac. Come here, bring me your Kong. I don't have a treat. Hang on. Isaac says he needs a treat immediately. We have dehydrated beef lung sent to us by a friend. Isaac and Sassy both think it is delicious. Okay. Alright. Here, get it. Go. I'm busy. Alright. So, I'm going to show you my ingredients. I have about a cup of grated up beeswax. This lighting is so bad. I had the light on behind me, and that was kind of worse. It looks like shredded cheese, I think. Like shredded mozzarella, like I'm going to make a pizza. I have dandelion infused almond oil. This is almond oil. I had a jar filled with dried up dandelions, poured almond oil over it, let it sit for a few months, then strained it. You don't have to let it sit for a few months, like 4 to 6 weeks is good. I just didn't get around to straining it. Then I have a chunk of shea butter. When I make dandelion salve, I use about a cup of almond oil, a cup of beeswax, and about 3/4 cup of shea butter. You can adjust it according to how thick or thin, or what the consistency is that you want of your salve. And what you can do if you finish making a salve, and you have to let it set up for a while and harden and see what it's going to be like when it's finished. If you decide this is kind of runny still, or this is too greasy, or this is like so hard you'd think I was making a candle instead of a salve, you can't rub it into your skin. What you do is you scrape it back out of the container you had it in, like a jar. I use these little 4-ounce mason jars. I also use them sometimes to put jelly in, like if I want to have kind of a sample size of a flavor of jelly. They make good holiday gifts. You give somebody like 6 or 10 different flavors of jelly. But you can use baby food jars. I'm sure you can buy beautiful jars on Amazon or Etsy if you want to spend more money on them. This is what I used. But you want a jar with a wide mouth. Obviously, you're not going to put like a salve in a jar like this, because you're going to have trouble getting your hand down in there to it. Alright, so anyway, what you do if you don't like the consistency when it's done is you scrape it back out of your jar into your pan, and you add more beeswax if you want it to be harder. You add more oil if you want it to be softer. So let me show you what I use to make salve in. Is I have this double boiler that sits over a pot. I kind of think I need to get a bigger one, but that's the size I have right now. And I'll tell you a trick. If you don't have a double boiler and you want to try making a salve, but you don't want to invest a lot of money in buying something, get some water in this pan. What you can use is like an empty can, like a soup can, and just set it in your pot of water. Before I got a double boiler, I used like the larger sized tin cans like this. I think I had pumpkin puree in this, but you can just set this in your pot and use it like a double boiler. I know all the tricks for when you don't have money, trust me. Alright, so we're going to put this over the pot of water. I'm going to turn up the heat. This water, when it starts to boil, I'll turn the heat back down a little bit because it'll keep boiling on medium, and I need some coffee. My coffee maker, my drip coffee maker, broke a couple weeks ago, and I had this percolator that I had bought for really so I could cook like on a campfire or something, and it makes the best coffee. I love it. I'm so glad I had that, first of all, because my coffee maker broke like at night, and I wouldn't have been able to replace it immediately. And that would have been a disaster if I had no coffee. I'd have had to like go knock on my neighbor's door and beg for coffee in the morning. And I'm sure they would have given me some. They would have taken pity on me. But I had this percolator, and I love it. I was going to wait, until it, I was going to replace the coffee maker. But I don't think I am now. This is so much better. And you can clean it better. You can't clean those drip coffee makers very well. All right. So I'm going to need some measuring cups, or a measuring cup, because this jar has more almond oil in it than I'm going to put in the salve. So I'm going to put the almond oil in it in the double boiler first, and my water's not boiling yet, so it's going to take it a little while. But I'm going to put a cup of this almond oil that's got the dandelion stuff infused in it. And dandelion salve is really good for dry, irritated, like damaged skin. It's really high in antioxidants. I have a friend with does she have eczema or psoriasis? I can't remember which one she has. But she uses the dandelion salve on it, and she loves it. So I'm going to put the almond oil in first so it can start to heat, because then I'm going to drop the shea butter in there, and it's going to eventually dissolve. This is where I start to think I almost need a bigger double boiler than the one I have. But then I'm going to dump some beeswax in here, and this is probably going to be the maximum amount that this thing can hold. And I mean, I can make smaller batches at a time, but I want to make, if I need a certain number of jars, I want to be able to make them all at once. Alright, so yes, Isaac, you're back again. So you're just going to let this start to warm up. The shea butter and the beeswax are going to start to dissolve. They're going to dissolve slowly. I need a plate or something to set the spoon on. And you're just going to stir it occasionally and let it dissolve. You need it to dissolve all the way. It's not going to do you any good to have it. Turn this over. Yeah, because I'm going to set the clean jars on it. Okay. I'm kind of talking to myself here. All right. So you're just going to give it time to dissolve. The water's just starting to bubble a little bit. Come here, buddy. What do you need? Let's see what you need, Isaac. Isaac says he needs all the treats. How about a hip and joint soft chew with glucosamine and chondroitin? Isaac thinks they are delicious treats. He loves them. We've got several different types of supplements that he's on now for his arthritis, and he loves it. He thinks they're treats, not medicine. Here, yeah, go. Okay. So if you want to add essential oils to a salve that you're making, whether you want it just for the scent or if you want like medicinal properties of essential oils, you would wait until this is pretty much dissolved and then put in your essential oils. Make sure you do a little research about essential oils before you add them so you know how much to add. Adding too much, especially if certain oils, can really irritate your skin. I'm just trying to melt this big lump of shea butter faster. Usually the shea butter is a lot softer, but I had stored it in my refrigerator and forgot to take it out ahead of time. So it's a very hard, solid lump. What is this? I have this weird little, looks like a little piece of foil or something that's not supposed to be in there. Who knows? Usually the shea butter melts faster than the beeswax, but you can see the beeswax is still, there's still little, lots and lots of little pieces in there, and you want it to dissolve like completely. And I'm just using a regular kitchen spoon. If you rinse it off as soon as you're done, like all the wax will come off easily. If you set it down and let it sit for a while, the wax will harden on it, and then you're going to have a hard time washing your spoon. It'll be like when you try to wash candle holders. Alright, I'm going to turn this heat down just a little bit because that's boiling more than I want it to. And I'm actually going to turn the heat on under my coffee pot. Usually my coffee pot sits on this front burner. Man, one of the best things about this percolator is that you can take it all the way apart and clean it really easily. My drip coffee maker, it was like a generic Mr. Coffee type thing. And the one I had before was black. And then I bought a new one, and I bought the absolute cheapest one I could find because I was really broke when the one before it died. And it was a white one. And you could see like it looked dirty inside where you pour the water, and it was really hard to get down there and clean it good. And there's no way that tubing that sucks up the water and then spits it over your coffee, like, there's no way that gets clean. It was just, you know, I never thought about it so much before, and I would run vinegar through it to clean it, but it just, I was probably drinking mold every morning. Well, every morning and all day long. I'm so happy with this percolator. You can take the whole thing apart, and it's really easy, and you can scrub it all. And yes, my kitchen is a mess, as it always is. I was kind of thinking I'd get my kitchen cleaner before I did this video, but as usual, if I waited until my kitchen was clean, you would never get a video. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, usually this shea butter, which is still like a big old lump, is usually dissolved before all the beeswax. If you're going to keep your shea butter in your refrigerator, I recommend taking it out. That's not going to work. I thought maybe I could kind of cut it into pieces and make it like dissolve faster, but that's not going to work. I'm just going to end up spilling this and making a big mess. So yeah, my kitchen is a mess. You can see my sourdough starters. I have 2 of them out here. I have 2 starters. Usually one lives on my stove and one lives in the refrigerator, but every once in a while I switch them. So the one that's been in the fridge and is kind of dormant comes out and gets used. So they're both out now. The one that's a little fuller, this one's gonna go back in the fridge later today. And this one's gonna get fed a little bit and it'll grow a little bit more. Let's see, we still got a, ouch, and that pot is hot. Still got a good chunk of shea butter. And this is something I would recommend you hang out by the stove, keep stirring, keep paying attention to it, don't walk away. One of the nice things about using an actual double boiler as opposed to the old soup can or pumpkin can is that at least this boiler has the little like spout thing on the edge, which makes it easier when you go to pour it into the jars. I'm generally able to pour it in without making too big of a mess, which for me is pretty amazing. What, Isaac? And I mean, it is, bring it here. It is getting smaller. You just got to wait till it's all dissolved, because if you try to put, if you try to pour it in your jar, you're going to have a big lump of shea butter. It's like if you bake a cake and you don't stir in your ingredients all the way, and there's like just this lump of flour in the middle of your cake after you bake it or something. It's not going to work. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but this is Saturday afternoon. It is about 70 degrees out right now. I think it's supposed to get up to 75. There's a nice breeze. It's sunny. It rained during the night, but it's sunny and not cloudy at all now. And it just feels like summer. I can't believe it. It's been like this. This is the 3rd day of this kind of weather. It's supposed to be like it again tomorrow. It's almost there. So if you wanted to add essential oils to this, I'd have to look up, I have a book on aromatherapy. I'd have to check to make sure I was putting the right amount in. But I kind of feel like this would do well with like something citrusy like orange and maybe, I don't know, a little bit of cedar, like something kind of warm. I don't know. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but you know, you might want to choose something based on if you had particular skin issues you were going to use this for. I have a couple different salves that I typically make, and to be honest, I have friends that like them, and I'll sell them to friends, and I'll give them away as gifts. And then what I usually do is, you know, maybe I'll have like half a jar that's left. It's not enough to fill up the jar to give to somebody. And I'll keep the leftover half a jar and use that. And I'll do that with all the different types of salves that I use. So sometimes I use something particular based on what I'm using it for, but a lot of times I'm just using whatever's left over, because I feel like it all works pretty well. I don't put essential oils in this because some of the friends that I make it for really want like as few ingredients as possible. One of them is really sensitive to a lot of essential oils. If I had one friend that wanted some of a scent in it, what I would probably do, you know, say if I was going to make 4 jars and 2 people wanted no scent and 2 people wanted a scent, is I'd pour out I'd fill up the 2 jars with no scent in it. Then I'd stick it back over the heat and add the essential oil and stir it in. And then fill up the other 2 jars. And be very careful. That's all that's left of the shea butter. And then be very careful to make sure I kept the jars apart so I knew which jar was which. Alright. Let me give Isaac one more treat because he's a spoiled rotten puppy. And then we will pour that into the jars. Here, Isaac. Take it. Get out of my way. Alright, so, oops. I want to make sure you can see this. So I'm going to put a couple jars right here. Yeah, you can see that. I wish the light in here was better. And don't dump the hot boiling water on yourself. Alright, so as you pour this into the jar, if you're holding it anywhere below like the rim of the jar is going to be very hot. You don't want to like set the jar on the palm of your hand and then pour that in there because it will be hot, hot, hot. And then it's going to take it a little while to cool down and to get solid. I mean, right now it looks like a liquid. Well, this is like perfect. Exactly 4 jars. Alright, so that's going to have to cool down for a while. And it'll get solid. Sometimes it sinks in just a little bit in the middle. And if you don't like that, turn off the screen real quick. If you don't like it to sink in a little bit in the middle, you can top it off with a little bit more mixture. If I were going to do that, I would have left just a little bit in my double boiler, and then it would kind of solidify in the double boiler, and then I'd heat it up again to pour it in the top of my jars. But I don't care if it sinks in a little bit because I'm just not that picky. Alright, so we're going to let it sit for a while. Let's see, it's about noon right now. So I'll come back later when it has set and I'll tell you how long it took. Alright, so here is the finished product after it sat overnight. It's a kind of a pretty yellow color. You know, it's solid. It's a little bit softer than I kind of wanted it to be, but I don't think it's so soft. Like, I would like it to be just a little bit firmer, but it's not so soft that I want to redo it. It has a very faint smell just from the, I don't know, the shea butter or the almond oil or something. You can barely smell it. So I just put a regular lid on it, like a jar lid, and I make a little paper label that says Dandelion Salve. This is if I'm giving it to someone. If it's for myself, I usually just write on the lid with a Sharpie. But that's it. That's how you make dandelion salve. And I do one with red clover. I do one that has a combination of dandelion and plantain, but it's all the same basic idea. So that's it for today. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't, and everybody have a good day.